keep replacing each other. Like, it must just be a nightmare every time he sees the roster and just goes, what could have been? But you never know. Maybe they'll be able to come into this one and knowing every single tendency of all of these players, maybe MSL can be the mastermind we all wish he could be. Because that's the thing. Like, there should still be pressure on this North roster. But I think us as like a scene have sort of just gone, yeah, we kind of don't know what to expect from them anymore. Like, there were so many hopes and it never really come through.
The consistent underachievers, perhaps. But if they could get a win here, this would turn some heads. 20-something in the world against 2. And Cajun spotting so many players below him in hell. MSL, though, will strike first. Well, things are going pretty well for North. Heroic have made a lot of movements outside, and now Storm holding the line against leikkeet alongside Testis. Gade is the next player to fall, and this is such a strange pistol round. North must be dizzy with how many rotations they've already had to deal with. Storm now perching downstairs where MSL is laid in wait with his USP, but he comes out second best against the Glock of Testis, and Burrup goes in for one more. Cajun, last man standing, only the one kill his way. Heroic draw first blood.
Okay, I'm just gonna say what I think this strat was, because I think I've seen this one when you play strat roulette. It's called the round the world, because they ran all the way down ramp, then they went back through hell, back up, and then down to B, and then planted the bomb. Like, are they actually just memeing us at the beginning of today? Because that was an absolutely ridiculous pistol round, and it worked beautifully for Heroic. I almost think that Cadian probably has the same smile on his face as is in his picture, because there's no way MSL could have had a read on that.
No, they saw multiple players down in hell from heaven. And then we just saw them kind of sprinkle outside and actually wait for rotations to come in. And even though MSL got the first kill, everything else against North. He does have a scout elected for himself as he was posted up to look outside. Heavy smoke presence was established. Till 2 on their belt still, though, on Heroic. And that will be Tessis tossing his out. niko has the final one. leikkeet watching into ramp with his Desert Eagle. Maybe if he can thread a couple of headshots, things could get interesting, but he has to back away instantly, which puts more pressure on MSL. And Cadian with the trollolol smile as he jumps in midair, and the MAC-10 rips through the head of his counterpart. And now Heroic downstairs again, multiple angles and plenty of time to pivot off. This is looking rough for North.
Made a decent position for him, but they are just being torn apart. It's only the SMG players that are low, and Stan has managed to find a couple. Not really expecting much from AZ and leikkeet, and of course, anybody who doesn't already know, our stats man might be the biggest AZ fan in existence. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see if we get any bias stats, or if DreamHack are going to have to hold him back on that one. I'm sure he has a catalog, maybe even some pictures posted around the room with like, oh, they did this a few years ago. But I think it's safe to say going into this one that Heroic are fairly heavy favorites. Like, currently the number 2 in the world, having some decent tournament victories as well. Even starting to say to people like, oh, why are you even doubting us in matches anymore? And I kind of agree with them. Like, Heroic have proven themselves. They picked up an incredible amount of talent. You have to bear in mind that this is a team that in the past, we've made comparisons to the likes, for example, of Sprout, where they were the feeder team for the likes of North, for the likes of Astralis. And well, now we're one of the only teams that we make comparisons to Astralis. Like, they can face off against the top team in Denmark, even at a point overtaking them as the number 1 team in the world. So in this matchup, I think you can only call them the heavy favorites. And if they were to be eliminated here, that would be a huge shock. So just want to set that scene, because if North do go on to manage to take this, I think that needs to be noted, that would be a huge victory for them.
100%. I really find it difficult to justify this caveat that's always put alongside like a big when they were doing well, and then Heroic is like, well, it's the online period. Well, everyone's in the same state of affairs. It's not as if they're like online and everyone else is live. Exactly. And it's been online for the better part of the entire year. Like, at what point do you give Heroic the credit that they deserve? So I'm completely alongside you. For me, if North ended up winning this, it would be a massive upset. Especially when you look into Vertigo. Like, sure, North have a 75% win rate, but they've played 4 times. And when you look at the teams they've beat, it's Tricked, Existence, which was the 1916 overtime, and Vizsla Krakow, which was a 16-14. So they're not exactly top-tier opponents. They did lose to 4s. When we look at the scalps that Heroic have taken on this, Astralis, OG, NaVi, Godsent, Big, they got Vitality on the chopping block, G2. One of these lists is not like the other, Tom.
Yeah, I think the best way to put it is the percentages are misleading. They will not help you if you're trying to work out who's the better side, but need to see something from North, something special. I think Potter was mentioning they need to be on 150%. They're going to be able to take this one through. But a 3v3 in this scenario, a possible one at that. But the problem is an afterplant on the B site is, well, it's rough. In fact, most of the time, teams don't even go for these sort of rounds. And it seems like that's going to be the answer for North here, unfortunately. Will just be the save. Well, this is a round as well where we saw like a few pieces missing even for Heroic. So the fact that they're going to build their economy even further, have a 4-0 start on the T side, it's a scary prospect. And with North being one of the, what we heard all Blair's sort of spew of different statistics, which were really favoring North. A lot of that involved pistol wins, conversions, and opening kills. Thus far, they have had none of those. I guess they had an opening kill or two, but they didn't convert the round. I guess that follows Blair's statistic perfectly.
At least they're consistent, Tom. Maybe not in the ways they'd hope. But now North do have a full rifle, and Heroic changing up the pace. Burrup straight down, diving through vents, wrapping round the side of the adversaries, but it's MSL point blank range, comes out ahead with his AWP. No room for error. If he misses that shot, he's a dead man. And Burrup can really start to turn the knife downstairs, but instead, Lekro, holding ramp for 1, can now draw away that fire. Cadian on ramp, can't do too much about him right now, but they do have niko outside. So even though Rook have lost players, they've lost pieces. They are rummaging round the back of the CTs. Tessis gets 1, yet to fall down, yet to die, and he is putting down death wherever he maneuvers. Heroic, we're a player behind, and now they actually lead in a 2v3.
This is, again, looking like a position where the conversion just isn't going to be happening. MSL, his AWP now becomes a bit of a burden as they do look to try and edge towards one of these bomb sites. But that's the thing. Heroic are more than happy to just hold. They've got plenty of time. They're waiting for that bomb to be put into position. And in the meantime, just making sure all areas are covered off. Tessis not changing his gaze from that heaven position. And now they have that afterplant. They need Lekro to almost play that old entry frag role he did so many moons ago. Well, with nothing really coming up for them, it may again just fall into a save. It looks like MSL's already committed to that. It is also really interesting. Like, while this round comes to an end, maybe Tessis can steal a kill or two, or it might go the other way. That's something at least. It is really interesting looking back at that old North Academy team, because it's something that obviously got discontinued. And when I remember that team happening at the time, and we were looking at players like Mertz, for example, as being, this will be the one, this will be the man that ends up in the main team, and he did. To note something interesting, Burrup, of course, was on that North Academy team, ended up being dropped completely. And do you remember who else? Because obviously Cyclone hasn't gone too well. Gade, he was there. He's currently in the main roster. But I think a lot of people forget Acor was in that team as well. So you had 2 of arguably the up-and-coming talents, players that ended up like moving forward and becoming some of the best players in Denmark on the academy team of North. It's kind of mental.
Crazy to think that they didn't necessarily promote any of those players or hold on to them for dear life. Thinking of what this North team could have been, they do have some very good players on their team, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you think of what could have been here, Tom. I mean, I know when Lekro was picked up, it was a bit of a head turner for some. They're expecting one of those lower tier Danes, as it were, to really fill in the void. That wasn't the case. And leikkeet's had mixed results. I think sometimes he can really activate and be one of North's main key members, but he doesn't always have that consistency that you'd hope for.
I think the other thing that's not mentioned often, we'll switch to that in a moment, KGB, that's a very good start to the round. Kaden, in fact, just going to peek in looking for an extra trade, but Mr. B is going to hold things down. Now, the vent has been taken by Sound. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the bomb, so realistically, this round becomes almost purely about damage. A great hold from KGB. Question is, will they hold on to all their guns? Because this youngster is definitely someone that can take a scalp or two, Vince.
Oh, yeah. He has that rapid reaction speed that can quickly snap into position at a dime's notice. And there is a player to his right-hand side, which will be AZ. Has the AK. So even though Storm is very healthy, he could succumb to his wounds quickly. The spray's labored. But there's the damage you were talking about has been inflicted. And now Storm, because of his HP, may have to think about going back in again. He did have a conversation with Frankie that we heard about economy and I think the time go dry. May not get that luxury because just around the corner is Gade. And he takes him clean out. So North finally onto the scoreboard. It's late, but at least they've got it done.
Yeah, no, a lot of that just came down to the sheer heroics from KGB being able to hold down the inner bomb site. But that's the thing, though. These are rounds that I imagine will be few and far between for North. So they now need to capitalize off of this. They've got that sort of hero round. They've got somebody bringing them up. They've done some real damage to the heroic economy as well, while theirs has actually just been built up. So the couple of saves might be worthwhile. This is where the pace change is completely different. Dawn taking move towards the lower bomb site, but MSO in position has managed to find the opener. A quick switch up from him, maybe a read after seeing the initial smokes. Although we may doubt many things about this North roster. The ability of the in-game leader to sort of look into these different Danish teams, especially know the tendencies of Heroic. I'm sure he's watched many a demo of this roster. At least the positioning should be right. The timing actually works out very well for Gade. He's going to get into position, and now Tessis is in the same position as his teammate was last round. An attempt to do damage. Amar, something else interesting. I know that, like, I think I've already heard there's 3-4 different ways to say Storn or Stown or Starven or Stan. But it is funny that we've all just accepted that Gade is Gade, even though that it is in Danish. I know for a fact that's not how you say it.
How do you say it in Danish? Like
this is something I'm 100% going to butcher, so I apologize to every Danish person in the chat. I think Risk said it as like Gel or something like that. Which yeah, exactly. I have no idea how they got to that. As said, I've probably said it wrong. So I don't know if there's any Danes in production who can try and whisper it in my ear and I'll then butcher saying it again. But yeah, according to Risk, who I trust on the matter, being one of the top Danish commentators, it is something along the lines of that. And there is no D or E or anything in there in the fashion that we would say it. It's always the reason I remember even the closeness to the pronunciation is because I cannot believe that's how it's said.
When you said that, I thought you were trolling at first, but then I realized, oh, it is Danish. So, yep, that's probably right.
It would be funny if he had just memed me so hard and it actually is Gade. Oh,
that was nearly
that was almost 3.
Yeah, he tagged Borup between the two of them. Holy. Okay. Well, that's a good way of shutting down a round, isn't it, Tom? 3 players instantly repelled. Storn has at least snuck around the back of MSL. He's being careful about it, maybe waiting for information for his teammate to make a move in. He can then use the AWP against the CTs. But in terms of the round, it's looking like it's done. Storm now picking it up. There is a weakened AZ to maybe try and fight off against, but the CTs are keeping indoors, keeping themselves locked in. The bomb was dropped outside, but it can be retrieved from Kaden, who now picks up an AK. So just hold on for a second. It started exceptionally well on MSL, but this round may not be done just yet, especially if Storm can deal with the threat of AZ in main. Not going to do it, at least not in time to save Cadian's life, and now Storm with 30 seconds. has to try and pull off the miracle play. He will be edging himself slowly in towards main, where Gade is waiting on the vent, tries the quick fire shot, but Gade stands tall, and that is 3 in a row now to North.
Yeah, good resurgence from them. No doubt this is a map that they're more than happy to play. I know that the desk as well as myself could have easily seen this one being a third map if Heroic had wanted to take that sort of risk. Like if they wanted to float another map that they were also good at and left it to go through as a third, I think it probably would have happened. I don't think we would have seen North banning it out anytime soon. This round, though, it is a pacey one. Nice nade coming out from Cajun B. He's whistled them low, and him and Gade going to clean things up very easily indeed. A clean couple of rounds coming out from North, the bank really building, and now we need to see the resurgence from Heroic, a team that we know have many strats within their arsenal, but at the same time, the last few haven't even been close.
That's very true. Been getting it shut down with MSL's aggression. We've seen him play downstairs a couple of times. He dealt with Burrup up close, and then a few rounds later, struck again. And now he's going aggro on ramp. He's really mixing up his avenues of aggression. And this isn't even a kind of angle where he can get counted that easily. He's got a player to his right, which is leikkeet, so he can feed and drip across the information, maybe take a player down. There it is. They fall into position, and now leikkeet strikes, but they anticipate that play. They expect leikkeet to be stood there. It's a great read for Heroic, but because they've lost down elsewhere, it may not end up maturing, and Heroic feel compelled to get aggressive. Gade is burning alive, surviving on 15 HP, but because that happens so quickly, there's still over a minute which Heroic can make decisions with.
I like that aggression was actually only a small piece of an overall plan. They had players also get aggressive towards lobby at the same time to pincer in Heroic, an almost direct counter to the strategy they pulled out. And at the moment, Heroic are getting slaughtered. It looks like North have more than done their research. It's almost like they're reading off the same script. Well-placed Cajun B, he's slaughtering them as they enter this A site. Him and Gade have been phenomenal. And one of these teams came in as an overlord favorite, got off to a fantastic start, and have since lost 5 rounds in a row.
I have to give a lot of credit across the North. Hasn't even been Heroic making many blunders, honestly. Just North really stepping up when it's been required. As you said, 19 kills between Gade and Cajun B. Been excellent on this A site. Cajun mollied off. The T's up close would have heard that. And then transition, they try and pounce in with a CZ. Gade holding it with the AK, trying to tap, but he's gone down. 3 kills go the way of Heroic. With only 2 counteracted on North. Molly to MSL, banking the nade. Off the wall will do little to Storm. And now the 2 remaining CTs will be going for that smoke on top of Heaven, giving MSL a better chance of running through with the one-way. But he needs leikkeet to have some impact, and leikkeet answering that call, not anticipating Testis to get up close and personal, and Storm puts an end to the 5-round streak.
It's got to be infuriating to do so well over the last few rounds, counter a lot of the purchases that have come up for the side of Heroic, and then to lose a round like that. And that's the worry as well. Like the problem with the slow start from North, allowing those early rounds to go in the opposition's favor, is even though you've got a streak of 5 rounds, 6 rounds in total for Heroic is really not that bad on the T side. Like, I don't think they'd be happy with it if they go 5-0 up and then lose the half 9-6. But if you're talking about 7-8 rounds potentially being there for Heroic, I would call that an incredible half. So North are going to have to be almost flawless from this point onwards if we want to consider this a good half from them. Interestingly, though, Testis, 5,500 in the bank. He's got a Mac 10, so I'm expecting some real pace thrown into this round from Heroic once again, maybe trying to catch them off guard.
That's a good spot, Tom. We'll have to see if they do execute behind that, and it seems to be the case. They're going super fast through ramp. leikkeet throwing down the incendiary, and it's the Mac 10 that comes out ahead on the M4. MSL, though, who is playing downstairs again, anticipating a play, maybe down secret, is now being pressured and pivoted from multiple sides, surviving the incendiary and the nade alongside it, but then Burrup threads the headshot. Not much they can do about it from Decon. Gade has been repelled on 14 HP, and Storm holding on as the door knocking away Cajun B, whose lifeless body is sent reeling away. Gade can do nothing with this HP. He has to fall back. And you just touched on it, Tom. If they can get 7 or 8 rounds, they're in prime position. Well, they've already hit the 7 mark.
I think this is what makes the Heroic roster so terrifying, is these on-the-fly calls that come out from Cadian to just be like, okay, well, we've had a couple of successful faster rounds. Now let's just put the pressure onto one position. And considering we already saw a round where there was like the double up over towards the ramp, chances are you're not going to have that in such quick succession. And even if they did want to go back to that strategy, a MAC-10 running through there, like, it's not really a huge loss if they get the trade. So I really like the call from Heroic. It takes balls to do it as well. And I think that's something that this Heroic team has shown that they have for, as said, such a young team, for a team that I think coming in together had an awful lot to prove, considering you'd gone for maybe some pickups that, like, for example, niko had been missing for quite a while when he came back into this team. Not that I think he's always been one of the players that has been removed from a team as a scapegoat, and I've never understood why. I think he's a player that plays his role within a squad superbly, but he always seems to be the one that gets removed in a lot of these rosters. Underappreciated might be the better way to put it. But bringing all of these players together, picking up a lot of young talent, to come in and be so confident in the plays, to follow your in-game leader as effectively as Heroic does, I have to say I've been thoroughly impressed with how far they've come.
Right alongside you there, Tom. MSL misses his shot, and Tessis, one of those youngsters, springs into action. And maybe this is certainly something you could say in a mark against North's name. They've been unable or not really happy enough to drop down to some younger talent and give them a chance. Let them shine the way that Heroic have. And that's been one of the reasons why they've never quite lived up to that potential that we all expected when that org was first really highlighted. Storm through the head and through a wall onto Cajun, and Gade has made moves, but I'm pretty sure he was spotted. So you'd expect the T's have a good idea as to this coming up. And they're making the most of this momentary weakness, pushing Cadian downstairs. niko gets tagged, but Tessis goes in on Lekro. The only real play that you can even get somewhat excited by is AZ only has an MP9, and likely he takes down 2 players here, was the Gade flank. But the fact that his entire team have died around him, this flank now has 0 value. The only value he can get out of this round is to save his M4.
Yeah, it's looking pretty bleak. Like, the streak that came out only seemed to be something that Heroic then just adapted to. And the last few rounds, as I said, it's been just large pace changes, like very fast outer takes in this round. You saw the ramp take just moments ago, and even the pistol round they won was just a blast straight through A main. And that's why I said, like, the reason this team is so impressive is I think that whatever Cadian says, no matter how risky it is, no matter like how it could easily go wrong in many cases, the team are happy to follow it to the letter. And I think that's very, very rare within rosters, that you just have a team that are going to go, okay, Cadian has said we'll do this, let's do that. Like, we talk about many other people who want to sort of like jump in on in-game leading or go, maybe we should do this instead. It just seems this roster just go, yep, let's go. And even if it doesn't work, I don't think they ever get to the point where they're like, oh, well, maybe Cadian's making the wrong calls. They just follow it. And it's really impressive. Obviously, there's been some, doubts, I guess, thrown over Hundem. But there's no doubt that even in his position as well, like the strategies that they've set up, the things that have been put in place, even with that sort of black spot on his name, he's clearly done some excellent work with the team.
Oh, absolutely no doubt. No doubt at all. A big reason as to why Heroic are in this position currently, for sure. And maybe there's like a lack of egos with some of the youth that's on Heroic, that they have no issue following Cadian's calls to the T. Might be something that can become an issue in the future, and a lot of players like to believe they know best. niko, he comes out second best, and that's the only assault rifle that North actually have at their disposal. Downstairs, Storm starting to clear up. There is a player up on top of the rafters, though, and although Storm is doing tons of damage, he finally will fall to the hands of AZ. But with that information gathered, AZ not long for this world, and the chances of clutching this now go into the doldrums. Gade again, maybe just looking to save. He did get one, but only 19 HP separating him and his demise. He's only died 6 times, which is quite surprising considering his team have lost 8 rounds. And it's looking like 9. So it goes to show that North have been comprehensively bested in a lot of these rounds to the point where they instantly pull the plug and go back to save. This time, though, Gade, I'm not so sure you'll be able to hold on to your life. Low HP gets peaked and Tesses make sure he will be given his 7th death and Heroic get their 9th round.
Something interesting as well, it was mentioned by Blair, and I brought it up briefly, but again, we've had a similar thing, like at least up to round 12. Obviously, the scoreboard is a little bit behind where we currently are, because we are in the future. But North have actually won more opening duels, which is weird. And even in this round, they won the opening duel. It just seems to be that they might take down, I feel like a lurker or somebody making an aggressive peak. Like, I think MSL has done a very good job of countering some of the players that have gone aggressive. In fact, he's the main reason they're winning opening duels. He is 5-1 in opening duels. Everybody else is negative or even. The fact is, though, they always seem to get one, and then the trade from Heroic is superb. Like, it's almost instant every single time. Either that, or there's a play being made elsewhere. And I'm talking over this round almost like it's some sort of eco. But the fact is, it was so dominant, it was barely even worth mentioning. 10-5.
That were few and far between on North. They did get 5 in a row, but then started to lose out significantly towards the end of the first half. And now Heroic move across onto their CT side. North have bit of utility at their disposal, Tom, but you feel like they desperately need to get a stranglehold on this pistol.
And the smokes have gone outside. They've got a double Molotov to play with as well, which I think is going to be used for an initial A take. It looks like this might just be a bit of an elaborate ruse to try and bait players in for a rotation, although it hasn't gone amazingly well so far. In fact, it's just Storm on the bottom bomb site. The remainder still waiting up above. niko, he holds the line for 1, but he is eventually traded, and Barup can't fight either. This pistol's going fantastically well, and again, we see the Molotovs used to try and deny anyone in after plant situations. leikkeet caught in a bit of an awkward spot, but he does escape, and Tessa's now trying to round the corner. He's got an individual duel, but Cajun B, always one of the players I've enjoyed watching in pistol rounds. I think he's been fantastic in pistol rounds for years and years, and while he's got a triple kill here, Thorn the last one left, 4 to find, no time.
And justifiable to save the Kevlar, honestly. When you know there's very, very little hopes of getting anything done, may as well bolster up your buy a little bit more. But yeah, Cajun seems to have the perfect balance between aggression, but also being passive when the situation calls for it in pistol rounds. And he just has that snappy aim that just perfectly goes alongside it. And now North with that second pistol, as I said, I feel like to get back into this map, they desperately needed it. They grip onto it with both hands. They only lost 1 player. And you've seen Cajun here spinning around, pivoting in for multiple Glock headshots. Very well played indeed. Heroic do go in for a force. They have a scout in the hands of Cadian, who's had a bit of a rough go of it. Not that he's really been that required, but he's on 4 kills. He'll be hoping that he can start to post up a few more frags in amongst all of this. And Heroic going for like pretty standard setup. Nothing that's really catching my eye.
I think as well, like you consider the way that they were playing that T side, I don't think Heroic really had space for an AWPer. Sorry, we've run into the bomb site in 15 seconds. Where are you posted with your AWP? Like, it wouldn't make any sense. So a sacrifice made for the team. CT side, however, yeah, you're right. I think we're going to expect a fair bit more from the in-game leader. This round, at least, though, for North is a good opportunity. They had a decent stint in the middle of the last half where they did manage to build up some economy. The problem was, as I said, the pace change from Heroic just seemed too much for North. niko in a good position. They've taken a lot of control on this A site. They're patiently waiting. He's spamming away. The flash from Cadian's superb, but unfortunately, the shot's just not quite being landed. He may hit a few tags here and there with Storm a little bit far away. Don't think there's much they can hope to achieve in this one. He's still going to go peeking in, but leikkeet already waiting on Mini. I think they might just save what they've got.
Cadian's done tons of damage, though. He's tagged 3 players with the scout. Spawn tries to finish off Cajun, who goes in for 2, lined up for him. And so there will be no saving members on Heroic this time around. They're going to have to full on eco, maybe a flash or 2, but not too much else to the mix. An excellent opportunity now for North to build up their economy, and to shred down Heroic and keep them at arm's reach.
Yeah, it's definitely not out of the realms of possibility. Not a death sentence to play this P side anymore. And wow, Cajun B, the eco frag hunter, currently 18 kills to his name. He's having a good map, that's for sure. I think Gade as well, we saw in the first half, putting up some decent stats. And wow, I mentioned MSL having the clear advantage when it comes to opening kills. So if anything, like with those two players plus MSL finding opening picks, you'd almost expect this to be a lead for North, but it wasn't to be. Arcadian at this point, he's just hoping he can bring a Galil into the next round. It's something extra. Could mean they can invest a little bit more into utility to gain a fair bit of loss bonus, so it's going to get a bit tougher in the next round for North.
niko looking for some exits, but all he will find is a grave. That bomb should finish him off. Indeed it does. You can see what he's looking for. He landed a P250 and a Molotov, so it's not as if he had a ton of weaponry behind him, but as you said, Cadian saving the Galil. Had the option of going for an AWP, decided against it, wants to prioritize that utility. So they will have a good, healthy buy on Heroic. Surely Cadian picks up a kit. Got 4.4k, maybe just saving in for the AWP, but that's a bit of a head scratcher. And if we get to the later stages in the round here, Tom, post-plant, and that's the distinguishing factor, that's a pretty big oversight.
Yeah, I guess that the only thing I could think is either slip the mind, which is a fairly common thing, or he's just playing so aggressive in this round that it doesn't even make sense for him to have a kick because he'll be dropped in such a horrific position, which if you look at the current poise of this Heroic roster, like they are looking to get aggressive. You've got two players around the hut, two players pushed up on ramp, and then one in the form of niko, who's currently just getting aggressive outside. Now, he's going to have the majority of the North roster breathing down his neck. But spotting the smokes falling, seems there's a temptation to get a little bit more aggressive here.
Yeah, listening for information. Now trying to pivot around the smoke. There's one. Could be good enough on Heroic. They still have those very forward positions, but they have somewhat bypassed this double stack on ramp. If they were to push outside and try and wrap around into A main, these two players that have gone aggro are basically going to have no impact. Acadian mixing up the pace, getting up round the back of the T's, bar up with the perfect angle. Probably should be finishing off leikkeet. We'll see how much impact that will end up having come the end of this round as he flashes himself through, denies the bomb plant. That Molotov designated to keep him away, but without a post plant coming up now, Gade in trouble. Had the right idea, not too far off landing the headshot, but it's not an AK to Galil. It won't have that insta one-tap ability. Molly toss towards Testis, who will stand firm. And dispatches of Gade, but that was so close.
Yeah, I think that's a round win, if anything, for North. Not in the obvious way of looking at it, but that was still a bit of a bonus round. They had a Mac 10, they hit Galils, and they still have a ludicrous amount of cash going into this one. Like, I think you have one of your, it was leikkeet had over $8,000, and so did MSL. So they're absolutely fine. They've made the repurchase for this CT side actually pretty weak, so a much better chance to do some real economic damage. So although they technically lost the round, if they win this one back, they're in a better position than they would have been if they continued the streak.
Completely agree. XM, MP9 do have the firepower elsewhere, though, and they are positioning those weapons that we've discussed in previous days here at the DreamHack Open Fall, that the XM on top of Hut around Squeaky is devastatingly powerful. So even though on paper it looks like a weakened buy, definitely don't write this buy off from Heroic. Smoke outside allows Storm the opportunity to wide swing with his MP9, should he so choose, and he does get smoked off. Still goes through the smoke, though. Gets easy before he is countered instantly by leikkeet, but that is one of the weaker players and weaker weapons that gets an even trade. That's actually pretty solid for Heroic.
So the control has gone in the other direction, but the time is what worries me. 40 seconds. Nice entry onto Barup, though. A bit of a weird one that he's held in mini with an XM, and then there's nobody covering off the rest of the site. This already falls into a retake, and, well, let's be real. They don't have much for a retake. Sure, there's kits available. There's a single incendiary and a couple of flashbangs, but if anything, yeah, unfortunately, this is the story of Nuke nowadays. This has to be a save. SS does take one, but I don't think that's going to bring any new lease of life to this round for Heroic. And hey, I mentioned it. This is the straight response from North. The only difference is obviously the caveat is that because 3 weapons have been saved, or likely be saved, because I don't think the T's are going to overhunt here, there will still be a purchase for Heroic. So it's not as much of a death sentence as it would have been if they lost every single player, but it still means that things are getting closer. 11-9, like after the 10-5 half, North have done a pretty good job on this T side so far.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the fact of the matter is they've only won 1 round on their CT side, right? So, I mean, you look at rifles, you look at the general momentum, the ebb and flow of how this map has been going after a 10-5 half, with the last 5 rounds of the T side on Heroic going their way. There's no doubt at all that North are not just back in this game, but potentially slightly ahead of momentum. If they cut down the economy here, as you correctly called, it will be another buy. That is Heroic in trouble, and MSL getting the entry. You have so many players running through the Molotov. They're taking tons of damage, but it may not end up mattering. Electro is looking to try and suppress Cadian, who will stand firm, but only has Barup to move off. Only 2 players remain. So much action, so much bloodshed on ramp in the blink of an eye. XM at that range. Good luck, Barup. Best of luck against the AWP. Yeah, better to actually turn tail and run away. But post-plant, maybe Heroic looking to save again. Tom, this is looking like a phenomenal T side for North.
Yeah, the problem is although the Heroic are still managing buys, each one seems to have like pieces missing from it. And the other thing that's been notable in this match so far is that MSL is finding so many opening picks. Like, sure, on the CT side, it didn't actually have that much impact because a lot of the time he was taking down the risk taker or the lurker or the player that was rotating. So although it was an opener, there was another plan in play. So far on the T side, though, well, he got rid of the man on ramp. You can't take anything away from him there. The North, yeah, they're looking pretty good. They've got players performing well. Cajun B currently 20 kills. Gades performing as well. Obviously someone who previously was actually in an in-game leader role for this squad. And for the CT side, we are still having buys that don't have proper pieces behind them. It's slowly getting better and better, it seems, but I think almost every single round has had an XM. And don't get me wrong, I love an XM, but it hasn't done anything so far.
Yeah, it has been somewhat mitigated by the fact that North haven't really fast played A. They've been taking outside control and ramp control, which really does neuter and nullify that XM's prowess. You know, we saw Barup taking fights at range outside. You're never going to come out ahead in those kind of confrontations. You need to be up close. So North have done a really good job of bypassing the threats, of outmaneuvering Heroic at every given turn. That 1 round on CT continues to be the case on Heroic. Money building nicely for North as they accrue those rounds, and there is a boosted up player through the smoke. It's Testis. First time we've seen them use this, and it has proved to be golden, and he stays alive. MSL though straight back in, and so often is he getting picked. Now the XM has a chance to get used correctly, but a flashbang destroys Barup. He can't see a single thing, and Testis has to spring into action, trying to push past the Molotov, but he can't do anything from that position. North looking good for another round.
A little bit shaky from niko, but that kill could make all the difference. Patient to go for something here. Gade, he turns his back. That's the 2nd kill. Now, they do have kits here, and this is going to spring this CT roster back into life. Cadian has to try and make a move here. MSL's waiting on the angle. He peeks past the flash. 1 kill, a 2nd as well for the in-game leader. He's being spammed through the wall eventually. niko, one of the members of many of his rosters, puts him in the grave. But it's Cajun B to try and hold on. The bomb tap, the time ticking, and niko gets the kill, but he will not win the round. It's another close one for the side of Heroic, but more importantly, North have leveled things up.
They most assuredly have done just that, Tom. This has been a T side to relish. Unless, of course, you're on the heroic side of things. You'd like to forget about this one, but MSL, these kills are everything. If he falls down after one, likely heroic get the retake, and they make it theirs. Haven't lost a second round after a one pistol. Heroic haven't won a second round force this event. Well, there you go. That's not going to any longer be that relevant for this map, but go through to the next two maps potentially in the best of three, and that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
This has been interesting. It's almost been in the second half at least, like MSL, like just countering every player who used to be a part of his team. He's like, you think you can outbrain me? I made you. I think it's like, this is something we talk about. Like, we talk about AWPers within rosters, and he's not one that really comes up too often, but he has been doing fantastically well. That nade is immense from Tessas. He has damaged so many of their roster, already finding an additional kill. Well, the T's, they get the control. I guess that's the positive. They've gained some map control at least, but the second this happens, we start seeing adaptations out from the CT side, rotations, players switching angles. In fact, they've sent 3 initially into that lower bomb site just to try and stop, well, any sort of push into B. Also, pressure being put elsewhere just to make sure they can't wrap back around outside. They've got a lot of the marks covered, and after North get themselves right back into the map, is this where Heroic break back?
Oh, the spray is good from Storm. Testis missing out, but doing a lot of damage to AZ. Ooh, there's Testis again. I thought it was the player in control room, Storm, that actually spammed up through the smoke. He has the right idea. And they're whittling away those HP bars on North. It could be the first time in a while that Heroic hit gold. In a very important moment, they brought the economy back down, and I thought that Cadian had missed his opportunity. He actually uncharacteristically missed a bit of a sitter on ramp, and you saw him knife the air in frustration. It was early on after his teammate died in ramp side. It could have easily been a 5v3, but it hasn't come back to bite them or haunt them, Tom. They still convert the round pretty straightforwardly as well. And this is always the issue for North. Like, yeah, you've had a really good T-half.
The tournament with Saw now being eliminated, and that means we're either getting the oldest team or the youngest team eliminated from the tournament completely, as one of these teams will be heading, well, I guess into the 9th to 12th battle, but nobody wants to be in that battle. It's a bit of a booby prize, but I guess you do get yourself some extra RMR points. Now, I want to note that Barup was on that lower bomb site when they won the round. He did not pick up a gun. So I was going to start the hashtag get Barup a weapon fund, but it seems like he's happy playing the XM. Although I don't know about you, I'm pretty sure he's got 0 kills with it, even though he's had it for like 4 or 5 rounds.
And I think you're spot on. Yeah, I just don't think he's had any impact with the gun at all. It's been a bit of a rough one, hasn't it? But you'd think with North having lack of buy, just the 1 AK on MSL, which is pretty interesting, considering that Lacro and AZ both have Kevlar. Yeah, wants to lead the front and lead by example, I guess. But the only thing he may be doing is walking into a bit of devastation. No, he's dropping Niko down. Now funnels away some of those crosshairs away from his teammates, but Cadian in secret still pivots out and pounces for one. Storm catching multiple players from the backside, dropping down the bomb. MSL holds his nerve, keeping these players, and there we go. XM now coming good for Barup. It took a while, but he's got his man, justifying the buy perhaps. AZ, just a dig, but it's all about MSL. You said the hero play. Well, so far, he's lived up to that mantle.
Do you know what would truly break their mentality, he says? I ace them with a hero rifle. That's how you break him, Vince. That's how you truly crush Heroic. MSL destroys them. Never mind. It didn't work, surprisingly. It's going to be Tessus, again, one of the players that used to play for his team, silencing the IGL. Still, like, jokes aside, that's not a bad round. Like, they invested into 1 rifle. They have enough to buy anyway. So all it's really done is taken out a couple of guns that probably never would have been dropped if he only had a pistol. So 13 to 11. Barup. I don't know. Can we get Elliot to work out those stats? How many rounds in a row has Barup had an XM? Because it's quite a lot. I think it's 5 or 6.
niko purchasing no utility at all, but did get aggressive into ramps. Maybe for the same reasons we saw KD not fully investing his money previously. Still have $2,700 allocated. Flashbang is good, keeping MSL reined in, but not stopping Secret from coming under control on the T's. Gate has already weaseled his way down there. And Heroic do have Storm downstairs to try and repel the push. But North getting ground again, Tom. They are making moves.
Yeah, it almost looks like the teams are going to switch places. Like, a lot of the aggression that's come out here from Heroic involves lobby control. Like, they want to try and take that portion of the map back. HMB, though, has been watching this and has been very successful, and they're making a lot of noise. So because of this, the T's are able to feed back that information and take control of their own. They're like, okay, if you're having the lobby, let's try and flank them from heaven and try and get in through mini. The thing is, though, Cadian is waiting for this. He had a very quiet first half. We're yet to really see him shine in this second, but he does seem to be perfectly aware of where these players are coming from, but he wasn't ready for MSL. Another entry into the site from the AWP. KGB with another. The XM fails once again. Please, can we get something else? I know that it works for this map, but it hasn't been working. And Tessus, he did not expect the second player in heaven. It's looking like a 12th round, unless the two young guns in this Heroic roster can pull off a pretty impressive clutch.
And that was some Houdini work there in heaven. I was sure that Tessus was a dead man, but actually flashed himself back to somewhat of a sanctuary. But yeah, as you highlight, the chances are so slim. Don't go for it. You have enough money to go in front of the buy. You still will be leading. It will hurt, of course. You fancy your chances. Tessus has 25 kills to his name. He's been playing exceptionally well again. They talked about his upward trajectory, really excelling after a short period of time. He continues that mark, 100 ADR also to his name. And we'll be seeing if they can use the AK in his and Storm's hands coming into the 26th round. But North making this too close for comfort. I think a lot of people would have expected Heroic to run away with this, especially after that first half. But credit North, they've hung on for dear life.
Obviously, while watching some Danish Counter-Strike, there's also been some Danish Counter-Strike news with the Mad Lions roster being completed with the additions of Refresh and Hooksy. And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing Refresh back on like a decent tier roster. I think he's someone with a lot of potential, and Hooksy obviously coming from the same team as him. Nonetheless, the news is not something the current Danish team seem to care too much about. It's going to be another opener coming up for the side of North. They've been winning a hell of a lot of opening duels. Barop, he's going to run through the flames, and oh, he finally had a rifle and didn't go much better.
Another near miss as well from Katie, and he just doesn't seem to have been able to get into this game so far. We did highlight that on the T side, he wasn't required. You know, they were going for a lot of fast plays. He wasn't really having the AWP that many times, to be honest. He was mainly using rifles. But we both said that on the CT side, we expect to see much more from this guy. We expect to see him start to take over to a degree. The fact is, he hasn't really had that much impact, Tom. He's missed a couple of key shots on ramp. He missed another one in this round, which allowed them to just crunch downstairs and get round the back of the CTs. And you feel like if he does land that, there's a very real chance that they can bounce back in this. But take nothing away from North. They're making the most of their opportunities, getting tons of opening picks. niko may not live to tell the tale, but he does hold on against Lekro. So with those saved guns, you will have another buy. But North starting to build up steam again.
That's the really interesting thing, actually. Like, you talk about Cadian's performance versus Astralis. He got nearly 100 kills in 3 maps, 97. Highest rated, highest performing player in that matchup, facing off against Device, who ended up being the second lowest rated player in the game and lowest on his team. Facing off against MSL, though, he is struggling. Now, Storm, good positioning. Tessus alongside him. They are holding the line outside, and for the first time in a while, Heroic seem to be looking to steal away around. It almost seems to be that whenever North catch up, that's where they get around back, not allowing this roster to take the lead. They've definitely been the better team in this second half, but the fact is Heroic had a big enough lead that if they still close this out, it really doesn't matter.
Exactly. That's the key distinction, isn't it? There was a beautiful grenade tossed out, by the way, on red container early on. Cadian missed and he was punished, and that's how we got down to this 3-on-2. leikkeet still feeling the effects of that early confrontation, down to 18, and his teammate about to be tapped in the back of the head. In fact, it will be leikkeet. It was Cajun that was downstairs. With that death, the bomb still out in the open. And Cajun, who's had an excellent performance, really, especially on this T half. He's kept the pace going from the CT side, but he'll be called upon again. Passing with flying colors against Borup, has control of the bomb, still 78 HP, and decides to vent dive downstairs. But there is one of the two CTs laid in wait, and it's Tessis on the cross that sprays him down, head in hands. North realizing they are so close to victory, but they're even closer to defeat.
I have to be real. I did not expect this map to get anywhere near this close, especially after the first half. Like, you look at previous matches between these two teams, in the last, 6 maps that these two teams have played, North got to 10 rounds once. The other maps were 16-5, 16-4, 16-9, 16-6, 16-2. So realistically, Heroic have had their number for quite a long time. Borup now has 40 XM kills, with 34 of them being this year. Well, he's not had many in this map. He's not adding too many to the tally. I think he's had 1.
Yep, I think he's spot on. Indeed, it was in hot. Not to say that it's his fault that his team are crumbling. It's been a great effort from North, but yeah, the XM definitely has not been paying out too well, and he does upgrade to the M4. Heroic 2 rounds shy of taking the first map in this best of 3. Elimination on the line. One team will join Godsent, who were knocked out earlier to the hands of Sprout, and NUKE did feature in that best of 3. It was much quicker than this and a lot more one-sided. North hanging by a thread, but they are still in this match. Their economy on the line. Mac 10 in play on leikkeet. As the T's all congregate outside. Smoke's now being tossed in for the wall. And Cadian with a HE behind it, but North have not pushed just yet. They're actually playing this one a little bit slower paced.
Maybe trying to get in the heads of North a little bit when you're going for these few aggressive rounds where you're constantly taking map control away and re-aggressing into angles. If you trade that out with some slower ones, it can be a little bit difficult. leikkeet's actually going to win that battle. Through the smoke with a Mac 10. Storm, one of the better players so far for Heroic, is going to fall. Tessis is the other, and he meets the same fate. I hate to say it, Vince, but it's going to be a save, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. I think Tessis needed to stay alive for his teammates. I get that the adrenaline starts to surge, and maybe this is where some of that youth comes into play. But if he stays alive, they've got 4 plays, and they can feasibly post up a retake. As soon as his life is deemed forfeit, though, there's no way that Heroic are going in with their current economic situation. Like, they have to save. So another save comes into play. North tying us up again. This is an incredibly close game, and I wouldn't even write overtime off at this point. That's the way it's gone. Do they actually throw some players into the gauntlet? They do. They want to try and deal with the economy of Heroic, but in doing so, North have to be careful. It's not like they've got a bunch of players that are super healthy, financially speaking, but they only lose 1, so it's only leikkeet that has to replenish, but we're all tied up, 14-14.
The current trend is the North have... In fact, I don't think they've taken the lead once in this match. It was 5-0, then 5-5, then 10-5. Then they managed to get it all the way back to something like 11-11, and then they lost again. So, yeah, not once. They've not taken the lead once in this map. Be honest, though, Vince, if they do it at the end, that's all that really matters. I don't think Heroic are going to take any solace in the fact that they were leading most of the match. The XM's back. Maybe he can add to the 40 kills or the 30-odd that he's had this year. Maybe it's going to be like the rest of the map where he's going to get wrecked.
Honestly, I feel like a team that wins after being behind the entire game will just take more pride from that, you know? We have real backbone, real spine in our team. Never gave it up. Kept in there throughout. I'll play with the mind games of Heroic as well. Out they come. Cadian hasn't been using this angle too often, but there's the molly greeting him, forcing him away. He has to give up that intel. He has to give up that potential of some early picks. We saw MSL nearly pick up a 3-for-1 outside with aggression to red container. Cadian hasn't really been going in for that, and I feel like his confidence probably not too high right now with the AWP. But 40 seconds left. North yet to push into the sites. They've got to get a move on.
Secondary AWP brought in for what seems like the first time, and while the XM also picking up a frag, it's the double up of the A site, the combo of long range and short range, with every member of North being slaughtered. It's the same again, Vince. They cannot take the lead in this series. And while what a 1-2 punch we've just witnessed, the interesting thing will be something that Potter mentioned, is that you normally throw in the AWPs as maybe a bit of a gimmick, something you attempt and then you get rid of it. And notice Storner's got rid of it. So I'm sure Potter might be jotting that one down and going, you know what, I'm happy about that. They've listened. They haven't kept it in as a full strategy, something they're going to throw in the whole time. They use it for a gimmick. They get themselves around and then they go, you know what, let's go back to the tried and true. Let's go back to what works for us. Now they come in with 3 AKs and AWP in the 1 M4 onto Tesses, and there's pieces missing here for the side of North, and well, it's going to be a straight up rush. MSL, the entry frag king, is going to come up alongside AZ. They have just slaughtered this A site in a matter of seconds. Every member of this squad falls, and well, I mentioned it, Vince, they can never take the lead, but they can take us to overtime.
Saw this coming from a mile off, honestly, Tom. The way this game has just been back and forth throughout, they just don't feel either team is dominant. This is going to be, obviously, the same score repeated. It's a 5-10, only 10. Assuming that Heroic do not clutch this 2v5, which would just be lunacy. That would be 10 out of 30 rounds go the way of the CTs. Now, Cadian throwing in a flashbang, gives his position away, needs to pivot in alongside Niko. Coming in from heaven, the bomb timer is so low, and that's going to be all she wrote for regulation. Cadian will not be able to get on the bomb. 15 apiece into overtime we move.
And I believe with overtime, that does mean we'll be getting into a relatively short break. So join us. Like, sure, it's a domestic matchup, but it's one that Heroic have been more than comfortable in. As said, the last 6 maps they played versus each other, once North managed 10 rounds. They've just taken us to overtime, and now they're looking for the victory. They're going to kick things off still on that T side, but if anything for these two teams thus far, it's been the stronger of the two.
It has all the flick from MSL, who's had so much impact in this game. And Testis tries to get up close behind the Molotov, but it's just another demolition job from North. Heroic just can't get their feet into this, and I thought maybe after the break that we've just had and a chance to really recollect themselves and figure out what to do next, to go aggressively and just to be utterly manhandled. The nature that they have, confidence-wise, that's not going to do any good across the Heroic. As we said before, next up is Vertigo. That's a map that North also have no problems playing, so this could get pretty scary on the side of Heroic. Burrup does connect the headshot, doesn't finish off just yet. Lekro still standing. MSL also low, but of course Heroic are backing away to save. With it being 10k as opposed to 16k, they ended up pretty much having to save if they do concede both these weapons in that third round, if they do become unsuccessful.
Saving in overtime. Sadness. That's all I feel. It's not fun. Of course, it does keep the economy game going, but personally not a fan. And, well, I'm going to do a bit of quick maths here. So, Cadian was the better AWPer in a series versus Astralis. Now, MSL has been a better AWPer versus Cadian. Thus, MSL is the best Danish AWPer.
Flawless logic, Tom.
Twitch chat, discuss.
Oh, with flicks like that, in that moment, he was definitely up there, wasn't he? That's pretty outrageous.
Well, obviously, like they've lost Kierby, they've lost Valde just before that. We were looking for a new, young, up-and-coming star. Who knew it was MSL all along? The AWPer has been fantastic. Nice start, though, for Niko. Storm does take a fair amount of damage. And to be fair, heroic and opening kills has not been something we've talked too much about. It's mainly been on the other side of things. Also, quick note, this is the first time that North have actually been in the lead in this map. They've managed to level it up, I think, 3 or 4 times now, but they've never taken the lead. We'll see if they can now run away with it. Of course, it's not looking great in this first attempt as well. They did lose the first man, but Cajun B quick to respond. Tessa's almost caught out in the open. He was fantastic earlier on, but he has fallen a little bit flat. I feel like he's been on 27 for a long, long time, and Niko gives it a damn good go. He's traded out by AZ. The bomb dropped, and one by one, we see the north side fall. A 2v3 turn just 1. But luckily, it's the star player of MSL left in a 1v2 situation. Now, Cadian has gone down the vent. The other player sat in hell means that MSL does have an opportunity here. A potential isolated duel. But if he goes for an open plant, the man in the vent could easily kill him off. Or if he goes down the vent.
This should be into the crosshair though, shouldn't it? 13, unlucky for some, but lucky for MSL, at least to make up a bit of ground on Cadian. Now, window opportunity has been closed, slammed in the face of MSL. The way he's been playing, you would not write him off. But 16 to 16, we keep going the distance. Obviously, 18 is the number they're both jockeying for the time being. But again, 10 out of 30 rounds went to the CT side. That's a pretty big pickup from Heroic.
Well, luckily, with both teams winning a round apiece, that means we actually get full buys going into the last round. So there will continue to be gun rounds, which is what we want to see. Although, please don't change the economy to make even more gun rounds. Like it was just talking about overtime. Both sides with AWPs in play, and Cadian's still being proactive. They're going to catch out Gade. Now, Cajun B peeking into the angle. This time, Cadian has his number. And Tessa as well. He desperately wanted that extra AK. And with the 2-man advantage, Heroic do look set to take their lead back once again.
Seems that lead was short-lived, Tom. AZ, Lacro, and MSL will be looking to put that scathing statistic to rest. But honestly, it's looking pretty sharp in favor of Heroic. That being said, though, AZ using the AK for the insta frag on towards Storm. MSL still hiding behind the smoke, looking if he can maybe get the drop. Not for the first time that Heroic have played aggressively through ramp with a 2-man stack. Lacro popping the windows, trying to get some B control, just making sure that Shadow is clear. From our perspective, we know that's the case. Now AZ's gone down, Testis sprays in, MSL's dropped the bomb. And the fact that they heard Lacro pop the windows, they know he's downstairs, and they do deliver. Heroic leads going through into the second half of overtime.
And considering they were very well poised on the T side, remember, they got 10 rounds themselves. The only thing I will mention is I feel like when it comes to OT, like if we look at the previous half scores, they're pretty much irrelevant. Like I've seen plenty of teams like absolutely slaughter on the CT side for the whole map, and then both teams win all T rounds. So it doesn't necessarily make that much sense. You're looking for cheese rounds. You're looking for individuals to step up. Most of the time, both teams have tried their default a number of times. Most of the strat book has already been utilized as well. If there's any fresh ideas left, they're normally fairly down in the pecking order of choices. We'll see if there are any surprises out from Heroic, whose main strategy when it came to their T side earlier was very fast, aggressive plays, and Canadians just run all the way through ramp with it all. That's a new one.
It is. Now's the time, I guess, to bust out these pretty crazy strats, and Cadian already making moves down towards hell with the AWP. He had Burt behind him, who got mollied off early on. Didn't end up costing them. Stone is watching lobby. North weren't too aggressive on their CT side from memory. So Heroic can feel a little bit more safe and a little bit more comfortable, knowing that those pushes are less likely to come into play. And with early map control, this doesn't bode too well for North, honestly, Tom. I feel like they didn't deal very well with these very aggressive early openings in regulation.
Much more patient this time. Something maybe the side of North weren't quite expecting. Cade about to come under some serious pressure, and he gets one, and now it's up to Cajun B. Been one of the best players so far in the server. 26 kills, looking for more. And the rock within the site, just holding it down alone. The support from leikkeet has arrived, and Cadian now needs to pull out some truly star AWPing, and it just isn't going to happen. Mr. Consistent Cajun B continues to really strive forward for North. And now they equal things up once again.
I feel like quite surprised that Heroic didn't at least put a flash or a HE or something at the back of the site there, just going in one by one and playing into Cajun B's hands. And make no mistake, he played that flawlessly. That was impeccable. But Heroic certainly doing themselves no favors. They do have a full-on buy now. Flashbang out, past red container. AZ getting the better of Cadian. Gets in for serious damage on Testis additionally. Plus he's got a ton of information for his troubles, which can be relayed to the rest of the troops. And Testis wasn't too far off getting finished off by that nade. A little bit deeper, he would have died. MSL on the cross takes down Testis through the smoke. And now North have the advantage.
Storm with a chance, and he eventually gets it through. Quite there just yet. 3v3. This has become a very cagey affair. It started off so dominantly in favor of Heroic. It was looking like a sprint to the finish. Yellow brick paved road. Instead, it's become tougher and tougher, but luckily, the young stars of Heroic have started to shine at the perfect moment. Storm just waiting patiently, but MSL, he gets the trade thereabouts. A good position from niko as well, but he's been spotted. I don't know how MSL manages to get out of this corner. In fact, it has to be a little bit of extra utility spared. Molotov thrown into the vent will deny leikkeet any sort of rotation. And once again, Heroic, after plant position, 2v2.
As you highlighted, the utility on point, keeping the CTs isolated from one another and the bomb site. And now niko goes back into heaven. Burrock forced out of position, but still comes out swinging with the AK. And there's the second one. Trades out successfully onto leikkeet, and Heroic have another map point. They've squandered one of these before when it was 15-14. Can they get it done on the second time of asking?
Taking an awful lot. It was ridiculously close for Borup to be going down. Storm as well needing a big play to drag them out of the depth, and pacey attempt by Cadian, but to no success just yet. A lot of counter utility being expended as well, and you can see leikkeet almost just using a pixel angle to try and give him a spot. Second that flash goes down, the incendiary will cover him off. It seems like Heroic have almost just started trying to bait out a lot of this utility with these peaks. While the CTs, in turn, have actually thrown a fair bit out. But if anything, things look quite even at the moment.
Incredibly even. As this map has gone back and forth, so will this round. MSL, a player we've not really seen too often from him in recent memory. Pushing aggressively. How much health does he want to sacrifice? What? Nearly all of it. 35 left. And that's brutal. He's putting himself up close, though, and AZ's making noise outside. Gade trades in for one, and then turns his attention elsewhere. He's had a huge performance alongside Cajun B, and this is why he's had excellent A control. So good, in fact, he spins around and deals with Testis and puts leikkeet up against it, but he passes with flying colors. Exquisite hold again from Gade. This Gade-Cajun B partnership is way too deadly.
Blair, this will be a fast game, is the quote that I'm looking at right about now. Quick 2-0. I think the production have quoted that back to him a few times at this point. I don't think anybody expected this. Maybe some North fanboys like Elliot might have tried to make that prediction, but let's be real, this has been ridiculous. Look at the pace change, though. Again, this was successful in a lot of the earlier rounds, but Cajun B and Gade have been an unstoppable force. This A site hold has been great, but Cadian puts them both down. It's left onto the Maestro. MSL trying to bring things back. It's not happening this time. 19-18, the lead taken aback by Heroic. But this has been the nature of this game. So back and forth. No real victor. And in overtime, well, I'm not going to be the one to bet against that.
It does feel, though, very top-heavy. Like, MSL's had his impact, but it feels as if Cajun and Gades don't have this vast impact on A, there's not too much to follow up behind them. And yes, there is a P19. It will be niko taking that. He won't get the kill. He softens up the target of MSL and actually comes out second best. And it's leikkeet that holds down on ramp. Rapid, in-your-face, ruthless aggression. But it has been forced backwards. Cadian outside. Opposite ends of the spectrum from Storm, who's using the other AWP. It's now been picked up down in ramp, and his IGL, his tag team partner, has been eviscerated to the hands of AZ. Storm at least has control over the bomb, peering into control room. Has the right idea, there could be a player posted up, but misses out, and North tires back once again.
I won't lie to you, Vince. I'm very happy that that didn't work. I wouldn't have wanted this game to end with an attempted P90 rush. It's a bold call, something that normally comes in Golden Over matchmaking. But yeah, didn't work. And now we're going back to 1919. leikkeet shutting things down, having a bit of a quieter performance. But as we mentioned, like, it doesn't really matter when it gets to overtime. It's all about the individual rounds, and the fact that he's put them back even and almost kills off or up straight through the smoke. A little bit of light spam is enough to put him on death row. The incendiary primed. It goes down a little bit late, but he's got counter utility to stop the rush coming in. Now, ramp control is something that Heroic have been gathering up quite often. What they've done with it, though, hasn't been massively successful.
Death row and final meal of bullets and shrapnel. Don't advise it. Tasty. Gone down just sweet for Borup. 12 HP, but they have made inroads behind the CTs towards lockers. Cajun realizing this, going out, anticipating that one of the T's is already perched up and trying to push around the railings of heaven. As we can see from our perspective, that would not be the case, and he actually just spots Cadian coming up. Imagine Cadian landed that shot. It would have been filth, but instead it's North. They're looking like they could convert this into a lead come the second time of overtime, or second half of overtime, I should say. Gade now up on the hut. Haven't seen him playing this position too regularly. That could catch Spawn off guard. AK round the corner as niko comes in for an entry, but Gade will hold the line again. He's been dropped down and now fragged out. Borup showing his hand from heaven. 20 seconds to play with, and a 12 HP Borup has to try and fend off while his teammate goes for the plant. Bit of an off angle's been spotted by MSL, and now Tessis, who has a flank coming out through heaven, also has to contend with 2 more CTs on main, and he will stumble, falter, and slip away with a successful retake to follow it up. North will lead 2019.
Oh, they've never led for long. I think only the second time in this match, and well, it seems like we might be leading our way further forward. This was a pretty bold attempt. Wasn't that far away, but well, there is a reason that you don't shoot on ladders in Counter-Strike. There's also a reason why Cajun B was expecting somebody to jump out to the outside of the building, and that's because they're a little bit more safer than the risky play. I said that they might be getting quite deep into the strat book, but that is a page that is meant to be locked away. Now, the trades are going to be the AWPers. Both MSL and Cadian and Gabe trying an incredibly risky attempt to get past Tessis. It leads only to his doom. A chance once again for Heroic to take us 2020. Well, for now, a bit of a stalemate, but MSL is rotating around. Cadian is waiting for him on the angle. He won't miss those. Now leikkeet and AZ. Oh, there's one for free. Maybe the second, but Cadian, it seems like he's woken up in overtime. As said, the stats don't matter if you bring home rounds. And I think he's done just that.
Exactly. You can see the confidence that he's now building up as well. Before, he wasn't going for these peaks. He wasn't playing too aggressively. Now that he's connecting, it seems like impossible is nothing for this man. He goes peeking in again, and there's the 4K. What a round to step things up from Cadian, leading in with the AWP. He's landed 22 frags, and considering at one point he was like 11 for 21, that is quite the turnaround. Massive impact in the round from his perspective. You can see him nailing every T that walks into his crosshair. 20 to 20, it would require Heroic to go clean on their CT side of overtime to actually outright win. Obviously, they're aiming for 22 now, but North pushed back, and Cadian thinking about getting aggressive. Flashbang lands in his face, and he decides against that decision.
With Cadian's KD being 22, 2, and 22, you'd almost say that it's set in stone that they're going to close out this time, just based off, well, me using my crystal ball. Battle between Gade and Tessus. Been a back and forth. Gade is going to give it another go. Tessus outfrags him slightly, but control of ramp has been something that both teams have actually challenged for quite significantly. We haven't seen a massive amount of outside takes over the last few rounds, but for AZ and leikkeet, that's been the plan. They're going to try and split in towards this B site by the looks of it. Cadian rotating in to try and support, but MSL is posted up. The opposite of the previous duel we saw on the Molotov is well placed to force the AWP back.
niko spots 2 players coming down. That spray transfer is delicious on Heroic. AZ and leikkeet devoured whole. Never had a chance. And it could be more. Tessus now standing his ground, putting headshots down range. And it's nothing but success for Heroic. And now they have another map point.
Third time's the charm. They've had a few of them. Never more than one. See if they have the right play to make this work. A 2-round streak, and normally that means that some issues might arise for the money of the loser of the 2 rounds, and that is the case. MSL only on a deagle, Gade the same. The remaining players do have their rifles available to them, and just look at the take outside. leikkeet making a fast move, but look at the position of niko. Storm out there alongside him, but he takes an awful lot of damage through the smoke. It's falling apart. They need a hero, and it's not coming. Gade, left alone, can only find a couple, and it is eventually gonna go the way of Heroic. Sure, that's what we expect.